and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. In a series of overnight raids in the West Bank last night, Israeli Defense Forces found several M16 rifles and caches of explosives. One M16 was found in a home near Jerusalem. A second rifle, complete with a set of homemade grenades, was found in another village. Over the past year, the Army has claimed to have seized well over 200 illegal firearms and 25 gun manufacturing workshops in the West Bank. Another M16 and two M4 carbine rifles were also found just last week. Improvised weapons like those that came from the workshops are cheaper to make and are found all across the Palestinian territories than their mass-produced counterparts. They're typically referred to as Carlo rifles and have been used in several of the past few years shooting terror attacks. During last night's raids, 8 Palestinians were also detained on charges of violence, rioting, and popular terror, which is typically meaning acts like hurling stones and rioting in the streets. Days after Jared Kushner led a United States peace envoy to meet with Israeli and Palestinian leaders, Prime Minister Netanyahu has just scheduled a one-on-one meeting with President Trump. Netanyahu is about to leave for a trip to South America, the first ever visit of a sitting Israeli Prime Minister to Latin America, before giving an annual speech at the United Nations in September. But now it looks like he'll be squeezing in one last big meeting before he heads back to Israel, most likely to take place at one of Trump's golf courses in New Jersey. This won't be the first face-to-face between Trump and Netanyahu, but it comes right after Jared Kushner reportedly reopened talks of moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. The embassy move was a critical talking point and something Trump famously promised to do during his campaign, but backtracked on last June, keeping the embassy in Tel Aviv. Jared Kushner is in the Middle East now after meeting with both Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, and clearly he has his work cut out for him. Former Vice President of the United States Joe Biden is now taking his turn at criticizing the current administration's response to racism. Speaking to The Atlantic yesterday, Biden issued a call to action to all Americans to save the soul of America by, quote, declaring what the president cannot with any clarity, consistency, or conviction, that there is no place for these hate groups in America. Hatred of blacks, Jews, immigrants, all who are seen as the other, won't be accepted or tolerated or given safe harbor anywhere in this nation, end quote. Biden's attack is the latest in a long line of criticisms levied against the Trump administration in the wake of the Charlottesville, Virginia neo-Nazi protest. Many from within the White House's administration itself have come out against Trump's handling of the aftermath, in which President Trump is accused of drawing moral equivalency between the protesters and counter-protesters. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and economic advisor Gary Cohn, for example, have both come out against Trump's comments. Aside from white supremacists who celebrated the president's remarks, others who have come out in defense of Trump argue his comments were taken out of context and that in his full address he denounced Nazi ideology outright, going on to simply condemn the violent acts on many sides. Just after Jared Kushner's visit to the Holy Land, another delegate has landed in Israel hoping to secure Middle East peace. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres, in his first meeting as the sitting UN head, is now in Israel to meet with leaders on both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Guterres began his trip with a tour of Israel's Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial, laying a wreath and proclaiming the UN's devotion to fight anti-Semitism and all forms of bigotry all over the world. This visit comes at a critical time in the peace process, which has seen shifting alliances in the Arab world and growing threats to Israel from Iran and Hezbollah. Israeli leaders are hoping Guterres' trip will open his eyes to the security situation and improve what they feel is a long history of anti-Israel bias at the UN. The United Nations chief is meeting today with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Jerusalem, and then with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, before continuing to Gaza in the next few days. Niv Nehemia, the victim of the August 2nd supermarket stabbing attack in YAVNE, has finally been discharged from the hospital after nearly a month of recovery. At the same time, his attacker, terrorist Ismail Abu Aram, was indicted. The 19-year-old Abu Aram confessed to police that he had come to the area on the day of the attack to, quote, stab Jews in order to carry out the commandments of jihad, end quote. Nehemia was working at the supermarket, stocking shelves when Abu Aram stabbed his upper body. A struggle ensued, but eventually Nehemia was too wounded to fight back. Abu Aram thankfully fled the scene, though, where he was tackled by civilians and later arrested. Nehemia was evacuated immediately to the Kaplan Medical Center in Rehovot, where he remained unconscious for 4 days and in critical condition, and then underwent several surgeries in the weeks to follow. After all the dust has settled, though, Nehemia remains positive, telling Channel 2 News yesterday that he, quote, wants to thank God for giving him the strength to get through, and that though he still has a ways to go, he's made it this far and can keep going. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.